my name is Kali. I'm an activist and I'm part of the organization from the protest camp O-Platz Lebt. The protest encampment is taking place from the 1st of March until the 31st of March, and we're there to fight together for refugee rights and climate justice.
Who is Mohamed Rassapar?
So, to explain who Mohamed Rassapar is, he's an Iranian refugee who committed suicide in 2012. He was living in a lager in Würzburg, and out of that the Oranienplatz movement came alive. So after the suicide it kind of, after the suicide people started to organize a march from all over Germany. They marched over 6,000 kilometers to Berlin and then started a protest camp for refugee rights in 2012, and they stayed until 2014. So with the suicide of Mohamed Rassapar, the movement came alive.
How this isolation is set up by German law?
The isolation is taking place by putting the people in lager, where they have also clear rules. I mean, in Berlin, I think it's maybe a different situation than in other parts of Germany, but there's also a lot of lagers in Germany who are very far on the outside, where there's nothing around, maybe a bus a couple times a day, but other than this, they have nothing around, and they're forced to stay in the lager. In the lager itself, they have rules they have to apply. They are told also, for example, that they are not allowed to interact with political parties, not allowed to organize. It's not exactly by law, because people, I think the isolation takes place because people are not informed about their rights, and people are put into camp where they're also being manipulated in some way, because the lagers are also making rules that are not even true, so they are also spreading misinformation. And I think the isolation is also taking place that people are not allowed to work, people are not allowed to study, so they're just waiting for their asylum procedure to pass through, which can take a long time, and essentially also waiting for the police maybe to come in the night and take them to deport them.
What lager means?
Lager means refugee camp, so the housing where the government puts the refugees in, and sometimes it can be in houses where they have rooms, sometimes it's containers where up to 14 people live, sometimes it's tents, so how a lager looks can be different, but the isolation still stays the same. Some conditions are better, some worse, but people are still forced to live there.
How the relation with the authorities and police going on?
We have a police contact, so usually when the police comes, the police contact is doing the communication with the police. Before the camp we registered it, and the police tried to push us away to Schlesischer Busch. So right now the camp is at Oranienplatz because we fought for it in court. The police wanted to put us to Schlesischer Busch to also make us invisible, because around Schlesischer Busch there's nothing. There's one street and a park, but at Oranienplatz we have the neighborhood, we have all the infrastructure that we need, and we want to interact with the people, we want to make the struggle visible. So for us Oranienplatz was essential. So it's good that we won in court, and that the police at the moment cannot really do anything about it because we have the law on our side.
Can you explain about the camp, the concept of civil disobedience?
So for the camp we're at the moment not doing anything illegal. For some people they say also visibility is already an act of resistance, especially in the refugee movement. People are made invisible through the isolation that I already explained. So making the struggle visible is already an act of resistance. The concept of civil disobedience comes out of different non-violent movements. The idea is that sometimes the law doesn't mean justice. So when we have law that is not right, civil disobedience is a tool to strengthen the democracy and strengthen like the law that is okay. So the civil disobedience comes out of the non-violent movements. It's a tool that is used when we see a law that is not just like not right, that the law is like this. For example, we have in the segregation in the United States, people were disobedient by, for example, sitting in the bus, like black people were sitting in the bus where they were not allowed to sit, the area that was only reserved for white people. For Oranienplatz movement back in 2012, there was the law of residency, so people are not allowed to move outside of an area, for example, from 30 kilometers where the lager is, where they live. So people were doing civil disobedience by breaking this residency, by coming to Berlin and joining the protest, because they were not going to sit around and wait for the deportation anymore. For us in the camp, at the moment, we're doing like the camp. We have the status of a legal camp, so right now we're not doing the civil disobedience, but when we look at the next term in the government and the CDU wants to implement like mass deportation, they want to close the borders, this is things that are happening that are not right. So at some point we have the choice, either we say what the law does or we like disobey and resist against the law that we think is not right.
What is the goal and how you can connect with other struggles?
Our struggle is an intersectional one because like how the refugees come here, they come out of a reason. For example, the militarization and the war that Germany is also taking part in by destroying the homes of the people. Also by like the Germany as a like still post-colonialism.
What about intersectionality in the camp?
Our struggle is an intersectional one because refugees also come out of a reason. They do not just come, they do not just risk their life to come here to Germany to seek for asylum. They come here because Germany is also putting a lot of money into militarization. Germany is also exploiting a lot of resources out of the countries that people come from, where they seek asylum from. Our fight is also an anti-fascist one because at the moment we're experiencing in German society and in general in European countries a trend to the far right, and people are being attacked for not being white, people are being attacked for speaking up for refugee rights. Our struggle is also a housing struggle because a lot of people cannot afford their housing anymore in Germany, and like people are therefore also forced to live in lagers where the conditions are not good. And also for the climate, so far, like we know that the Western countries are also part of why the global South is experiencing a lot of the damages from the global climate crisis. Yet so far Germany has failed to acknowledge that like also to be a refugee out of climate crisis is also a reason to flee the country. Yet Germany so far hasn't even acknowledged that this is also a reason why people are forced to leave their home. So we see a lot of...
Connect feminism and the camp, please.
In general, we know that like women in society are also marginalized, that we experience a lot of violence, may it be sexual, physical violence, and also that we are part of like, we take on a lot of the care work in society, so also taking care of the children. Women who come out of like refugees, who come with children, for example, the isolation is even worse because they're also isolated with their children and are still responsible for taking care of the child or the children.
What about migration and women's rights and feminism? What the topic will be treated in the camp?
I think when we talk about feminism, I don't really understand how people can say that they're feminists, yet when it comes to refugees and women who are being like displaced, being forced to live in lagers, why we are not speaking up for those women as well? Why is it like we speak about feminism, we speak about we want higher job positions, yet a lot of women are still like experiencing a lot of more essential problems. And I think also in the feminist scene we should put our focus also on the women who are most marginalized and threatened by the system. And this is not talking about like government positions. I mean, it's also important, but I think we should also focus on other problems.
What about migrants as a workforce? Because Spain is the best economy rising after regularizing all the migrants. Why Germany should do the same?
I think in Germany we experience at the moment a lot of crisis also. People are going more into poverty, like the economy is not stable. For example, after Germany said that they want to send Syrians back home again or back to Syria again, they are not realizing that actually the whole healthcare system is also dependent on the people. And in general, like migrant people are carrying also this country. And like we're missing this in the economy, and I think it's a huge issue also.
Do you have a message for the new MPs in the parliament, Bundestag?
Yeah, I think how CDU, SPD and the Green Party, for example, are dealing with the real issues that we are experiencing in society, and that by not dealing with it, by putting it more on migrant people, blaming them for the problems we experience in society, I feel like they're enabling the AfD. So I hope for the Linke that they keep talking about the real issues in society and like also being a strong voice for migrant and refugee people in the next like governing period. Okay.
Last word. I would like to have your opinion about the BSW, the Bundeswagenknecht. They did not succeed to reach to the parliament. How you see this movement about migrants? Because they are racist about migrants.
Yeah, I think BSW is a very weird example for a party. I don't really understand what they're doing, since they at some point act like they're left, in some way they're more like racist and fascist tendencies. In one point they're for militarization, like when it comes to Israel they don't mind sending weapons. In other points they're against war, so I think they're full of contradictions and I don't really trust the party. I think that they were successful in a way in some points to get some votes from the AfD, but at the end I don't really trust the party and also not other parties as well.
Last word about the next Chancellor, who said that he will host a visit of international criminal war wanted by the ICC, the current Prime Minister of the genocidal country. What is your opinion? Because the new Chancellor breaks the international law. Yeah,
and except for breaking the law, which is already bad enough, I think we all are worried for what happens when Merz comes into government. He already showed that he is willing to vote with the AfD as well when it comes to migration law. His plan at the moment is to take away the basic human right of seeking asylum, step for step, right in front of our eyes, saying it's for safety, saying it's for security, while failing to really see what the issues in the country are. So I think Merz is a dangerous man who is probably gonna drive this country into shit even more. And I'm scared that if also AfD is not in the government with him, that even more people are gonna start voting for AfD. So I'm just worried about him in general. I think my message to the viewers would be that silence is a privilege. Silence is also complicity, especially now where the far right are definitely not sleeping. So we should wake up, I think, and realize in what situation we are and realize what we want from life, and if we want to see how people are being sent away and treated not right. So my message or my ask would be to organize and yes, fight. Meine Nachricht an die ZuschauerInnen wäre, dass Stillsein und einfach Zusehen ein Privileg ist, was sich nicht alle leisten können, und das Zuschauen auch Komplizinnenschaft ist. Wenn wir sehen, wie Leute nicht fair behandelt werden, wenn wir sehen, wie Leuten Grundrechte weggenommen werden, wie können wir nicht realisieren, dass es uns auch betrifft? Die Tatsache, dass generell Grundrechte abgeschaffen werden können, ja, betrifft uns alle. Das heißt, es ist Zeit, sich zu organisieren und zu kämpfen.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you.